Today we are going to make a salmon spinach dip. Dish, and I'm going to make it as simple as possible for you so anyone can achieve this. It's the basis to it is just salmon and fresh spinach. So let's go over here and I'm going to show you the basic ingredients because there are two sauces to this dish. We need lemon. We can start with a red onion or white, it doesn't matter, whichever you prefer. And we're going to be using tamari, which is this gluten-free soy sauce, which is a great substitute if you're really watching it and trying to be pretty clean paleo-wise. Some organic chicken broth, olive oil, or butter. In my recipe, I'm going to be using a little of each. So both of them are fine for you. You need those fats, some fresh ground white pepper, balsamic vinegar, and some white wine vinegar for the two different sauces. I like to use fresh ground sea salt, and also a substitute for the olive oil is grapeseed oil. It doesn't have as much flavor as the extra virgin olive oil. It's paleo friendly and delicious. Okay, so for the main ingredient, we will have some fresh salmon. A jalapeno is optional, and also some cauliflower for today. Again, this is going to be optional to the recipe as well. This is our rice substitute. And last but not least, so I like to buy this container from Costco. It's a really good price, and it's some fresh organic baby spinach. So I'm just removing this part of the cauliflower, the stem part. You're just going to cut that off and pull it away. I want to wash each of these pieces really good, and then I'm going to stick it in the blender. Okay, so now that I've washed and cut the cauliflower, I'm going to throw it in the blender and just chop it up pretty small, just like rice. It blends up nicely. If you've got a food processor, of course you could use that instead. I do not, so we're just going to use the blender for today, and this is a great blender. Okay, so 10 minutes later, if you don't have a food processor, I recommend getting one. Otherwise, it will take a little bit to get all that cauliflower blended up. And again, I'm just doing this for you guys. I am not a cauliflower fan, so this rice is for your enjoyment, not mine. After you get it all blended up, nice and small, like rice, you'll stick it in your microwave for about 3 to 4 minutes. You want to cover it so that it steams in here and just let it sit after you finish cooking it. Or you can put it on your stovetop and just put it in a pan and cover it. About 2 tablespoons of water if you're doing it on top of the stove, and steam it that way. It doesn't take very long at all. Okay, so you have your garlic, the chopped onions, and you can slice up your jalapenos. And if you want to just make the jalapeno a little bit more mild, just de-seed it. And that'll help. The lemon's just sliced in half. We're going to use the entire lemon in the recipe. And we'll prepare our salmon next. So the prep for that is just to wrap it in foil, squeeze half of the lemon on top of your salmon, and sprinkle a little bit of sea salt and some of the white pepper on there, and then we'll close it up. Close each end up, sealing it completely so we don't lose any of the lemon juice or the seasonings, which is just sea salt and a few pinches of white pepper. Okay, the first sauce that we're going to make, you want to get started pretty early. After you've done your prep work, before you put your salmon on the grill, go ahead and grab your tamari, and we're going to do equal parts for this dark syrupy sauce. And it's basically a balsamic reduction. So we'll have a 1/4 cup of the tamari, and then a 1/4 cup of the balsamic vinegar. And you can use whatever brand you want if you're partial to a specific brand, that's fine. So just a 1/4 cup of each. We're gonna put those together. We're gonna have it on like a medium-low right now. And this one takes the longest, but it really doesn't need much work at all. We're just going to reduce it down, so it's going to be like on a little medium to low, and then as it starts to thicken, you're going to just keep it on low. So around 15, maybe 20 minutes, and it'll get like a thick syrup, and then you'll take it off of the heat whenever you're ready to use it. drizzle that over the salmon. And I didn't mention earlier, but the salmon that we purchase is wild salmon, which is the best salmon for you, and it's the coho salmon, which is really delicious, real light. Okay, so I have my pan here, my saucepan on a medium low, and I'm just going to add about a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of olive oil. Like I mentioned earlier, you could use grapeseed oil or whatever you prefer. I like olive oil, so 2 tablespoons there, and melt that down. And as that finishes melting, the butter melts down, you're going to mix the oil and the butter together and then throw your onions in. Saute your onions for a little bit, for about 2 minutes, and then add the garlic in. Saute those 2 items together, and then we'll add in our chicken broth. Okay, so we're sauteing the onions, and I just added the garlic. So you just have your olive oil, butter, onions, and garlic in here. That's it for now. We'll saute those together for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll add our chicken broth, which is just a half a cup of chicken broth. And then we'll flavor that with a little white pepper and some seasoning. So we're back to our white sauce, which it consists of the olive oil, butter, some chunked red onions or white onions, just it's your preference, fresh garlic, and some chicken broth. So we've cooked that down some. Now it's just simmering. We're going to add our white wine vinegar to that. So that has that pungent flavor that we're looking for. You know, the salmon's really mild, and then that lemon juice is just going to add a little bit more acid to the sauce. And with that butter will help cut it, and it'll be real tasty. I've already added a pinch of the white pepper and a little bit of sea salt to this sauce. Be sure to always use a light hand with that sea salt, because fish and any seafood is salty to begin with, so you can always add a little bit more of that later on. Better to use less than more, because you don't want to ruin your seafood. So we're going to let that simmer down for just a few minutes. So you can see our balsamic reduction is still cooking down. It's not quite at the consistency that we want it. It's not in that syrupy form. As soon as we get there, excuse me, that vinegar is strong, but I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so we've pulled our salmon off the grill. It was on there about 13 minutes. I like my salmon on the rare side, so that's just a preference again. Our sauce is now ready. As you can see, it has really thickened up and become more of a syrup. I'm not sure if you can tell on camera, but it is much thicker and there's a lot less of it. It has been reduced down. So the other sauce is on a low simmer right now as well. We're keeping that warm. And we've got our cauliflower steamed. We're going to top that right on top of that spinach that we've washed and we've now put into our dish. And just go ahead and fill that dish up, because once that warm cauliflower is on there, it's going to cook the spinach down. So you will you'll see that it shrinks up quite a bit. I'm just going to put the cauliflower on half of the dish for those of you who do not like the cauliflower too much. So now I'm just drizzling that white sauce over the salmon and the spinach, and it's still really hot, so it's going to help cook the spinach down too. And you don't have to pre-cook the spinach before this dish. I'm straining most of the onions and the garlic out of there, and that's just for my kids' sake, just because they prefer not to see those things, but it's also it's already added tons of flavor to that sauce. Now we're going to go ahead and take the dark one and drizzle it over the fish. So that's nice and rich and thick and syrupy at this point. And it's super thick right now. Probably should add just a little bit of water to it. Didn't use it right away whenever it was ready, but you can easily get a nice consistency going. Again, you might have to add a little bit more heat to that. But remember too that this is somewhat salty, so watch the salt that you add to your seafood. Alright. Alright, now there's your salmon dish, and the jalapenos you can just sprinkle on top for those who like more of a bite. But we've got some nice tartness from our lemon juice and our vinegar sauces. Wonderful flavor. It's completely healthy, low carb, and delicious. So enjoy.